Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. My name is Brent, and I serve on the FirstU Board of Directors. It is good to be with you. Today's service is being pre-recorded from our homes, following the guidance of the provincial stay-at-home order. These are trying times, and while staying at home is safe, we acknowledge that some of us are feeling isolated. Thank you for welcoming us into your home. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us by email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. You can also join us at our virtual hospitality hour by Zoom every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Ottawa time. You can find the Zoom link on our website, www.firstunitarianottawa.ca. We hope to see you today. From our website, you can also find out more about us and a lot of our activities, and you can subscribe to our weekly email newsletter, the EUU. You can look to the EUU and our website for details and updates, such as our search for a new permanent settled minister. In fact, here are some exciting announcements from our ministerial search team. The negotiations with the settled minister candidate have been successfully completed, and we are excited the name of our candidate for settled minister will be announced tomorrow, Monday, April 12th. Watch for a special EUU tomorrow with information about the candidate. Next Sunday evening, April 18th, starting at 7:30, we'll be doing a live recording of a fireside chat with the candidate on Zoom. This evening will enable them to answer a variety of general pre-chosen questions as preparation for the congregational meetings during the April 19th to May 2nd candidating period. You are welcome to listen in on the live session, April 18th, or wait and listen to the recording, which will be posted on the member page of the website. The Zoom link will be provided in next week's EUU. The 2 Sundays after that, April 25th and May 2nd, the candidate will be preaching at our Sunday services, so be sure to watch. And watch for more information about the official congregational calling of the minister on Sunday, May 2nd. In other news, the CUC, Canadian Unitarian Council's National Conference, Sustaining Our Light, will take place virtually May 14th to May 16th, and registration is now open. The program includes a national intergenerational worship service via Zoom on Sunday, May 16th at 1 p.m. to 2:30. There will be parallel programming for youth and young adults. Look to the EUU or the CUC's website for more details or to register for the conference. Finally, if you are a Facebook user, please consider joining the new FirstU Community Facebook group. You need to request to join from within Facebook, but anyone familiar with FirstU can join. It's a great way for us to stay connected with each other 7 days a week. Again, welcome to all, whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, however you identify, and wherever you consider your sanctuary. Today, you are part of our spiritual community. We hope you find what you are looking for, and we hope you come back soon.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharmila, and I am delighted to be your worship associate this morning. As Brent mentioned, do look to our Facebook page, website, and weekly EUU emails for information about all the happenings in our congregation. I would like to highlight some announcements. If you would like your child or children to be part of a child dedication ceremony during the Sunday, May 9th, that's Mother's Day, or May 30th, Flower Communion services, do contact Reverend Pat at minister@firstunitarianottawa.ca. If you would like a private ceremony, contact UU office at firstunitarianottawa.ca to make arrangements. On Tuesday, May the 4th, from 2 to 3 p.m., the Social Responsibility Council will be holding a line dancing event on Zoom for members of the congregation and the community, with Jody Benjamin, a local musician and choir director of Shout Sisters, at the Rideau Park United Church. The cost is $20 per ticket. Please mark on your check that it is for line dancing and send your payment to the finance manager at FirstU or make arrangements for an electronic transfer of funds. Money raised will go to an affordable housing project. If you are interested in signing up, please contact Kathy of the Poverty Action Group or the office at uuoffice@firstunitarianottawa.ca to register by Wednesday, April the 28th. I also have some announcements from the Environmental Action Group. First, we are into week 8 of our Lower Your Carbon Footprint Food Challenge. Just 2 more weeks left until Earth Day, so join us in this week's challenge. Week 8's challenge is to include high fiber foods in at least 1 meal per day. Studies show that diets lowest in greenhouse gas emissions were high in fiber-rich foods. And you can still send your favorite vegan recipe, plant-based, egg, and dairy-free, to Suzanne Shaler for our recipe booklet. Check out the EUU or the Climate Confrontation page for the challenge chart link and for the link to Suzanne to share your recipes with us. And please join us in this month's Enviro Advocacy Project for a Green and Just Society. The federal budget is just over a week away. Let's join with the CUC and call on our leaders to include a universally available, guaranteed livable income component to the post-COVID-19 response. Check the EUU and the Climate Confrontation page for links to a sample letter and to petitions supporting a guaranteed livable basic income. The next announcement is for those who are interested in greening their investments. See the EUU for a link to next Thursday's webinar from Climate Legacy, Potentials and Pitfalls of Climate Responsible Investment. And finally, don't miss out on this week's EnviroBits, which you can find in the EUU for some challenging bits of information. Now, please help me welcome our minister, the Reverend Patricia Guthmann Haresch.
Bonjour. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my home again. The pandemic has driven us inside, and we feel for the next few weeks it wouldn't be responsible to have the worship team meet together at 30 Cleary. And still, here is Daphne. I introduced you to her once in a service. She's looking over my shoulder. And there's that same clock, still not working. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that. The plant behind me has grown a shoot since we last met in my home. This past week marked the Jewish commemoration of Yom Hashoah. Shoah literally meaning a whirlwind or calamity. This past day was a day to remember the victims and the heroes of the Holocaust, where around 6 million Jews and several million other targeted people, Soviet civilians and prisoners of war, a couple million Polish people, including Reverend Norbert Chapek, a Unitarian, thousands of Serbs, disabled people, Romani people, Freemasons, Slovenes, homosexuals, Spanish Republicans, and Jehovah's Witnesses. Millions were persecuted, targeted, then murdered by the Nazis. When we light the chalice this morning, may we be reminded that every single person who lived and lost their lives in the Holocaust was someone's child, perhaps someone's parent or sibling. Before we light this chalice, I read from a poem by the late Israeli poet Zelda and translated by Marcia Falk. Marcia Falk has written wonderful things Google her. Each of us has a name given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile, and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing. Each of us has a name given by our enemies, given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. May we remember all those who have lost their lives in the Holocaust of the Nazis, in the Holocaust of every genocide. May we remember each one of them is a member of the human family. And may we be a part of building a world of peace and compassion and equity for all. Let us sing the Chalice Song.
Chalice, chalice, burning bright, help remind us with your light of how we'd like to live each day, with love and truth helping lead the way.
Hi to everyone. Hope everyone is doing great on this Sunday. Today I'm sharing with you a story that is titled Feathers in the Wind. There is an old Hasidic tale, an old Jewish tale from many, many years ago about a man named Yankel. He lived in a small town in Eastern Europe. Yankel loved gossiping and talking about others to other townspeople. He would hear stories around town about other people and sometimes add his own little flourishes and changes to make the stories more interesting and entertaining, then share the stories with everyone he knew. He loved the attention that being the storyteller would bring him. One time he heard a strange but true fact about a well-known local merchant or businessman and started spreading the story all around town. Soon, the merchant heard what was being said about him and he became very upset. He was sure that this story would destroy his reputation and ruin his business. The merchant went to the town rabbi. "Rabbi, can you help me? The story being told about me will keep people from wanting to do business with me. What will I do? Can you help me?" Knowing the townspeople well, the rabbi knew just what to do. He was fairly certain that he knew who was spreading the story about the merchant. The rabbi summoned Yankel to see him. "Rabbi, what seems to be the matter?" "Yankel, we all know how much you love to tell stories. There is a story going around town about a certain merchant. Do you know anything about it?" Yankel didn't know what to say or how to answer the rabbi. He stood and squirmed uncomfortably for a while. "You see, Yankel, words may not be a weapon that you can hold in your hand, but are damaging and can cut as deeply as any sword." Yankel felt awful. He had never thought about how words can hurt and that just telling stories can cause harm. He had only thought about the joy and the attention it brought him. "Rabbi, I am so terribly sorry. What can I do to make amends, to make it better?" The rabbi thought for a moment and replied, "Do you have any feather pillows at home?" "Yes, I have several." "Will you need only one?" the rabbi replied. "Go home and come back to me tomorrow with a feather pillow." Yankel rushed home and set aside one feather pillow that he would take to the rabbi the next day. All evening and night he was troubled by the hurt that he had caused the merchant and all the others that he had told stories about. After going to bed, he tossed and turned in his sleep, until finally the sun rose and he could get up, and returned to the rabbi with his feather pillow. "Rabbi, this is the feather pillow you asked me to bring today. What would you like me to do with it?" "Yankel, I would like you to cut the pillow open and go door to door around the town, laying one feather at the doorstep of every home. When you are done, come back and see me." It was a strange request, but Yankel was eager to do as the rabbi asked. He rushed outside, tore open the feather pillow, and ran around town, placing one feather at the doorstep of every home. When he was finished, he made his way back to see the rabbi. "Rabbi, I have done as you have asked me." "Now that you have done that, Yankel, go back through the town and collect all of the feathers, put them back into the pillow, and bring the fully stuffed pillow back to me." "But Rabbi," Yankel burst out, "that is impossible. Even as I was walking away from the feathers, I saw that they were being blown from the doorsteps. How will I be able to find and gather up all of the feathers again?" The rabbi began his explanation. "The same is true for damaging words. Once you let them pass from your lips, you can never take them back again. They float and flutter away in whatever direction the wind carries them. That is why you must always watch your words carefully and avoid all talk about others. You will never be able to repair the damage you have caused, but I am hoping that you have learned a lesson." Yankel nodded with deep understanding. From that day forward, not only was he no longer the town storyteller, but he did everything he could to spread the word about the pitfalls of damaging words. Instead of spreading hurt, may we be careful in what we say and do, so the spread of our words and actions may make the world a better place. Heal instead of hurt. I hope you all enjoyed that story titled Feathers in the Wind. Hope everyone is doing well, and please check the EUU for Zoom sessions for UU kids coming up next Saturday. All right, take care. Bye.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle hold.
This is the time when we can share our personal joys and sorrows. We do this by placing stones in water, and the ripples created from this sends our wishes or concerns out to the universe, where we can hopefully find condolence and support. A stone of sorrow today on the death of Doris this past week. A stone for Amy and family, with baby Evan turning 1 year old this week. Where did the year go? A stone for those observing Ramadan starting next week. A stone of joy as we learn of each person in our FirstU community getting their COVID vaccination. A stone of deep sorrow and care for Philippe, whose brother Frederick died suddenly on Thursday. And a final stone for all those joys and sorrows held deep in our hearts. This is the time when we can send our earnest hopes or wishes, which some people call prayers, to those who we care about. I invite you to think about your relationship with this community and how it can help you in the good times and the not so good. Think about your hopes and your hurts and how sharing them with like-minded people can make you feel. We know that in this time of COVID and yet another lockdown, that it's more difficult to meet with people. So I encourage you to stay in touch by phone, by Zoom, or in person if you can do so safely. Dear unknown, unknowable, yet known by many names, keep us mindful that we are all related, that when one of us is ignored and treated with dis-ease, we all suffer. Today, let us commit to welcome the stranger. Let us move beyond our comfort zones and connect with people labeled different and push to the edges of society. We can make a difference. We can transform lives. We can bring harmony and healing to the places and spaces where we live, work, and play. Let us keep our hearts and minds open and receptive to the still, small voice that calls us to stand witness for those who cannot stand, to lead the truth for justice for those without a voice, and to lead the way on the journey towards wholeness for those without sight. In the spirit of love, compassion, and community, let it be done. Blessed be.
This morning's reading comes from the story, Hovering Above the Pit, from Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust by Yafa Eliak. It was a dark, cold night in the Janoska road camp. Suddenly, a shout pierced the air. You are all to evacuate the barracks immediately and report to the vacant lot. Anyone remaining inside will be shot on the spot. People pushed their way to the doors. It was a panic-stricken stampede. Exhausted, trying to catch their breath, they reached the field. In the middle were two huge pits. Once more, the voice roared in the night. Each of you dogs who values his miserable life and wants to cling to it must jump over one of the pits and land on the other side. Those who miss will get what they rightfully deserve. Ra-ta-ta-ta-ta. The voice trailed off into the night, followed by a wild, coarse laughter. It was clear to the inmates that they would all end up in the pits. Even at the best of times, it would have been impossible to jump over them. All the more so on that cold, dark night in Janoska. The prisoners standing at the edge of the pits were skeletons, feverish from disease and starvation, exhausted from slave labor and sleepless nights. Among the thousands of Jews on that field was Rabbi Israel Spira. He was standing with a friend, a free thinker from a large Polish town, whom the rabbi had met in the camp. A deep friendship had developed between the two. Spira, all of our efforts to jump over the pits are in vain. Let's sit down in the pits and wait for the bullets to end our wretched existence. My friend, said the rabbi, as they were walking in the direction of the pits, man must obey the will of God. If it is decreed from heaven that pits be dug, and we be commanded to jump, pits will be dug and jump we must. The rabbi and his friend were nearing the edge of the pits. The pits were rapidly filling up with bodies. As they reached the pit, the rabbi closed his eyes and commanded a powerful whisper, "We are jumping." When they opened their eyes, they found themselves standing on the other side of the pit. Spira, we are here. We are here. We are alive. Spira, for your sake, I am alive. Tell me, Rebbe, how did you do it? The rabbi said, I was holding on to the coattails of my father, and my grandfather, and my great-grandfather, of blessed memory, said the rabbi. Tell me, my friend, how did you reach the other side of the pit? I was holding on to you, replied the rabbi's friend.
The story that Sharmila just read comes from a collection of stories by the late Dr. Yafa Iliak. She collected 89 stories of the Holocaust from interviews and from oral histories, an amazing and horrifying collection. If you've ever been to the United States National Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., one of the most memorable exhibits is this one exhibit called the Tower of Faces. It is a 3-floor high exhibit of pre-war photos of just one Jewish community, so before World War II. And it's the community Lithuanian town, Aiškis, is I think the way you say it. What is devastating is most of this community was massacred by German units and their Lithuanian auxiliaries in just 2 days. 2 days of mass shootings in September of 1941. So I guess we're in the anniversary of that this year. 80 years ago? Jews had lived in Aiškis for almost 900 years. And in 1939, the 3,000 to 3,500 members of the Jewish community constituted a majority of the town's population until those 2 fatal days. This was the town where Dr. Iliak was born. She and her family survived because they were sheltered by 2 Polish men. So she was part of collecting these photos for that tower of faces. Those were collected from 100 families to capture the rich religious, cultural, and family life of the Jewish community that once existed in that little town and is no more, so that we can remember. It is devastating to see these family photos and know of the tragic ends of almost all of those people. Shortly after German troops entered the town, Jewish men were constricted for forced labor. On the night of Rosh Hashanah, of all nights, the Jewish New Year, the community was ordered to surrender all their valuables. The following morning, all Jews were ordered to assemble in the main synagogue and its 2 houses of study. Another 1,000 Jews from the neighboring towns were brought to Aishkes and crowded into the 3 buildings. For 2 days, the 4,000 to 4,500 Jews were held without food and water. On the 3rd day, the killing began with the mass shooting of all the men in the Jewish cemetery. The next day, the women and children were taken out and shot near the Christian cemetery. Only 29 Jews survived the slaughter. Now, this is a horrible scene from so many horrible scenes from the Holocaust of World War II. But one might ask, with all the daily images and news that come to us of shootings and racism, suffering, death and war and poverty and fear, what need do we have to look backward and hash through old news? We've got enough problems today, right? What is done, and there's nothing we can do about it. Of course, there aren't any lingering effects from the Holocaust or any other genocide. Of course not. Haven't we talked about all those awful things of the past enough? Past genocides of perhaps Indigenous people of Canada or Black Canadians who were once enslaved. What is done, and there's nothing else to do. Let's talk about what's happening now and move on. A few years ago, a friend and I brought some teenagers to Washington, D.C. for a full weekend of sightseeing. The National Holocaust Museum had just opened, and I assumed it was a must-see for our itinerary. Well, of course. When I mentioned this to my friend, she looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Why go? How depressing." Well, the kids couldn't believe it. They wanted to go, to learn, to try to understand what had happened. They had an inkling that no matter how terrible their discoveries might be, it was important to see it for themselves. To face the events surrounding the Holocaust is like jumping into an abyss of unimaginable terror and ugliness. For those of us who weren't there, the film images and pictures, the survivors' accounts, the incinerators, our worst imaginings as we conjure up in our minds what it might have been like for these lost human souls. The fact that this reign of terror was premeditated and purposeful is incomprehensible. Rather than just focusing on the events of the Holocaust, Yom Hashoah is a day to honor those who lost their lives. It is Holocaust martyrs and heroes Remembrance Day. Yom Hashoah is a gift, an opportunity to not let the loss of 6 million Jews and a total of those 11 million people targeted, 11 million in total, who died such horrible deaths. Let's not let this opportunity pass with no notice and without considering what lessons we might bring to this day. So how shall we honor them? Excuse me. If we could ask somehow those people who died, what would they ask of us? We might imagine them saying, Take care of my loved ones, my descendants who lived. Take care of my people. However, among the survivors and living Jews, a broader plea can be found. For example, at the U.S. National Holocaust Museum, there is a research center and projects for the prevention of genocide, and their website posts genocide watches and alerts from around the world. Right now, there is information on this Holocaust Museum's website highlighting 17 countries with known past or present atrocities, like the Jews of Aishkis and other communities occupied by Nazis in the World War II era. Throughout our known history, even in this land known as Canada, and right now today, peoples are being displaced from their lands, in retraining camps or prisons to be normalized, are not treated equally in their own countries because of religion, race, gender identification, relationship diversity. The horrible truth of the matter is the Holocaust of World War II is just one example of too many examples of genocide in our human history. So a common sentiment that you heard in these recently in Passover Seders, or that you often hear arising from Jewish communities, is similar, well, to our first UU principle, or similar to the sentiment of this Yom Hashoah prayer by Rachel Manula. May I never endure the experience of being a non-person. May I never regard another as a non-person. May my human dignity always be preserved. May everyone's human dignity always be preserved. May all of us maintain our honor as human beings. As the Jews say, because we were slaves and are now free, because we were persecuted wherever we went, because we arose out of the ashes of the Holocaust, there is an obligation to learn from this and uphold justice and dignity for all. We may not all do it perfectly, but it's our obligation nonetheless. In the wake of World War II, within the Jewish community, there were some calls for revenge early on, but the longer-term legacy has been one of dignity and care. Another story from Yafa Iliak's Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. In the fall of 1945, there was a hanging of Nazi war criminals in the town of Majdanek. Stella decided to go there for the occasion. She wanted revenge for every Jew whom she had buried with her own hands, for every child shot, for her mother, father, grandparents, for her beloved brother Zygus, for the world of her youth that was so brutally murdered. She traveled all night to assure herself a good front choice seat. The hanging began. The noose was placed around the neck of each criminal. The chairs were kicked out from underneath, the bodies dangled, the crowd cheered, and Stella closed her eyes in horror. My God, she asked herself, what am I doing here? Cheering death? Death begets more death, hatred more hatred. It will never bring back father, mother, Zygus. Her revenge was short-lived. In that moment, Stella sensed that she had once more joined the human race that still must exist somewhere, someplace, a world she once knew. May all be welcomed in the human race to the circle of the living. May we act in our lives out of this understanding of, as we UUs say it, an interdependent web of all existence. At Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center in Jerusalem, There stands a monument to 6 million Jews who perished during the Holocaust. The monument's purpose, in the words of Eric Choi, is not just to honor their memories, but also to imprint upon the consciousness of all generations. Never forget what was done to millions of innocent people, lest it be repeated. James Luther Adams, one of our most influential UU theologians in the 20th century, noted we must recognize the moral necessity of our remembering the Holocaust and our responsibility for preventing its reoccurrence. Never forget, lest it be repeated. And I say never forget all the Holocausts of the past, lest they be repeated. And let us open our eyes to the Holocausts and genocides happening right now before us and not be passive bystanders. Do what is in our power and capacity to do. I know many of you who are listening are doing the work that you can right now. From my own public prayer, one Hiroshima Memorial Day when I was a student intern, we can say it will never happen again, but first we must remember. And if we remember, we can't help but act. And we must tell the story so that generations to come will know of the horrors. And if they know, our hope is that they won't be able to help but act. But what is it that we can do? I agree with James Luther Adams when he says we recognize our responsibility to prevent the reoccurrence of a Holocaust. Yet how do we begin to take on such a task? The Reverend Beth Graham suggests we Unitarian Universalists do have a blueprint for action. We need not go any further than the principles and purposes printed in our hymnal. The living tradition we share draws from words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Mind you, it's just a blueprint. Each of us will need to select the final touches to fill out how we will attempt in our own lives to promote goodness and justice in the world. Perhaps the place we start is by educating ourselves with open eyes and open heart, to listen to the spirit of the times, to news and stories from many different perspectives, so that we might know how to respond and act and direct our attention before or to help prevent evil from growing too large. Maybe not a word we use too often, evil. Let us educate ourselves to be watchful for the spirit and signs of the times and amongst our own neighbors. Let us be open to the testimonial of others, their life stories, discerning the truth as we can, glean from varying sources. Then perhaps we can go forward and act, confront evil, the menace of bias, the demonization of peoples. The Episcopal priest and theologian Carter Hayward defines evil in this way. It is the doing of a moral wrong, specifically of breaking the relational bond between and among ourselves in such a way that one, both, or many parties are disempowered to grow, love, live. What is the lure of the human soul? What lures the human soul to commit injustice, break the relational bond, as Hayward describes? And what is the environment that fosters evil? So often when we speak of evil, we focus on that one human soul who commits one act or a series of acts. Yet could a Hitler or even a Bashar al-Assad rise to power without a community, no matter how small or large, supporting them? I dare say without a world community being complicit somehow. It is so easy to say that evil exists in the other, whomever that may be, the enemy, the other political party, whomever disagrees with me. If only it were all so simple, cried Solzhenitsyn in the Gulag Archipelago. If only there were evil people somewhere committing evil deeds, and it were necessary only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the dividing line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being, and who is willing to destroy his own heart? If we conclude that when evil looms as large as a Hitler or an al-Assad, there is a community, a larger network or force, even a world community that in one way or another supported or at least didn't stop that rise to power, if this is so, then when we also realize, as Solzhenitsyn says, it is too simple to think that the solution is to separate out individual people and destroy them. If that were the solution, history might look to Hitler as the exemplar for fighting evil, as he identified the evil people as he saw it and went about killing them in a most efficient way. The dividing line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. I want to learn what fuels the machine of that is evil and injustice and bias, how I might even be participating. This is what I can hope to learn from examining the past, learn from the Holocaust of World War II and all Holocausts, all genocides. Oftentimes when we think of doing the work of social justice, we think of it as only being external work. Writing a check to a cause, signing a petition, voting, going to protest, which are all very laudable actions. But the work of social justice is also internal work and self-examination. Where am I a passive bystander in all of this? What biases do I still harbor that shape my actions and the way I think about or treat others in the world? What is the more learning that I can do? What do I do to quiet my spirit? And where do I find joy to keep myself strong and whole for the work that there is in the world? And social justice is also relational work, meeting others where they are and working with them to make the world a better place. So I think of Carter Hayward's suggestion that evil is the breaking of the relational bond. Ultimately, this is my fear for the present times, that the relational bond, the network of mutuality, a sense of the common good for all, that this interdependent web will be forgotten. How do we remain in relation? Some of my favorite words from Carter Hayward, I think I've said them to you before, are these. We are not automatic lovers of self, others, world, or God. Love does not just happen. We are not love machines, puppets on the strings of a deity called love. Love is a choice, not simply or necessarily a rational choice, but rather a willingness to be present to others without pretense or guile. Love is a conversion to humanity, a willingness to participate with others in the healing of a broken world and broken lives. Love is the choice to experience life as a member of the human family, a partner in the dance of life, rather than as an alien in the world or as a deity above the world, aloof and apart from human flesh. Oh, I love those words. How shall we honor those who lost their lives in the Holocaust? Let us not be aloof from the dance of humanity. Let us keep our minds and hearts open to the truths, no matter how ugly or fantastic. Let us find room in our lives to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. however we are able. Let us not forget to love, maintaining the honor and dignity of ourselves and each person. Love doesn't necessarily mean I can get along with everybody, but it does mean honoring the humanity of every person and each person's desire and need for shelter, food, security, and equity. We also needn't try to do this by ourselves, whether it is the inner work or the external work. If you recall Sharmila's reading, the rabbi's friend reached the other side by holding on to his friend. We are missing a great opportunity, pool of resources and support if we don't look to each other and others in the greater community for the work that is at hand. In the words of the Reverend Rebecca Parker, in the midst of a world marked by tragedy and beauty, there must be those who bear witness against unnecessary destruction and who with faith stand and lead with grace and power. There must be those who speak honestly and do not avoid seeing what must be seen. Of sorrow and outrage or tenderness and wonder, there must be those whose grief troubles the waters, while their voices sing and speak of refreshed worlds. There must be those who gather with the congregation of remembrance and compassion, draw water from old wells, and walk the simple path, not always so easy, of love for neighbor. May we not avoid seeing what must be seen and walk the simple path of love for neighbor. Let us sing, We Would Be One.
This is a time in our service that we usually accept the offering. You may go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how you might keep up with your pledge or make a donation during these COVID times. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of the congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another.
Before I extinguish the chalice, I read the original lyrics to a song in our hymnal by Ehud Manor. And in our hymnal, it's called Soon the Day Will Arrive, but its original title is Bashana Habaya, or Next Year. And the lyrics actually are a memorial to Manor's brother, who was a fallen soldier. But he didn't tell the composer that. So when she wrote the song, it was Bashana Habaya, and it was so upbeat. But it can also be beautiful. Bashana Habaya. It's a song thinking of times past, but a song also with hope for the future. When I read these words, I think of Yom Hashoah. I think of pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Next year, we will sit on the porch and count migrating birds. Children on vacation will play catch between the house and the fields. You will yet see how good it will be next year. Red grapes will ripen until the evening and will be served chilled to the table. And languid winds will carry to the crossroads old newspapers and a cloud. You will yet see how good it will be next year. Next year, we will spread out our hands towards the radiant lights. A white heron, like a light, will spread her wings, and within them the sun will rise. You will yet see how good it will be next year. May your heart be filled for a better tomorrow, and may we all make it so. Let us sing, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Quod vidas mori de justitia, tenurimo cielum potuam, so
Go in peace, go in joy, go in love.